what's up, guys? It's Eric with Plugged In Recovery. Welcome back to another alumni check-in. This week, we're going to be catching up with Antonio, seeing how he's been doing since moving out of our houses and hear about all the blessings in his life. Antonio, why don't you tell us a little bit about how long you were at our house, and we'll get into it.
Well, first off, thank you, Eric, for allowing me to be a part of this podcast. It's a privilege, and I believe I was in Wade's house for about, I want to say, good 7 to 8 months last year into the new year, and yeah, it was a positive experience overall, definitely.
That's awesome, man. I know. Yeah. How long were you in sober living total?
Total, I started out, I went to the Salvation Army to get sober. And once I graduated there, I went straight into Paul Garcia's houses. And I went, I'd say overall, about a year, including both Wade's and Paul's houses.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And when you were in the Plugged In houses, how was the structure and the house helped you get ready to take that next step and eventually move out?
Well, I honestly hadn't even heard of sober living when I was in rehab. And prior to that, it was a suggestion that was suggested by my sponsor when I was in rehab the last, I'd say, month or so. He was like, what do you plan on doing after this? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like all I know is that I don't want to burden my family anymore, but I have no money, I have no job. He's like, well, have you ever heard of sober living? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, it's an easy transition. You live with a bunch of like-minded individuals. It's a fellowship. It's a place to be held accountable, hold other people accountable. And you pay a little bit of rent, but you got to share some rooms. It's an adjustment. I was already doing that in rehab, so making that little jump from rehab into sober living, it was an easy transition back into society. So it was a positive thing. That's
cool, man, and we're super happy to hear it. A big part of sober living is also just getting you introduced to the community, right? Introducing you to different meetings in the area, getting you acclimated to the fellowship. How was your time spent in the house helped you with your fellowship that you have today?
Well, I was introduced to Junkie See, Junkie Do over at the Pigeon Coop while I was still in rehab. So I started going, I've been going there for about 18 months now. And yeah, it was pretty cool because I didn't have a car. I didn't have a vehicle when I first got out of rehab. So getting into a sober living house with a bunch of guys that were eager to go to meetings all over the valley to get a little taste of different places was pretty cool. Everybody would say, hey, jump in the car. And I'm like, all right, where are we going? Going to a meeting, just get in the car. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was pretty cool. We went all over the valley, but I really gravitated towards Junkie See, Junkie Do on Thursday nights at the Pigeon Coop. And then I found SNL, Saturday Night Live, it's just down the street actually from Junkie See, Junkie Do on Saturdays. So
that's cool, brother. Since moving out of the house, what blessings have you had in your life? What does that look like?
Well, I got a car. Yeah. And I quickly paid it off. I'm working at a detox/rehab center now as a behavioral healthcare tech /facilitator. I get to teach IOP classes and relapse prevention classes on the weekends. I love it. It's ground zero for people's recovery. And if I hadn't gone to rehab first, sober living to get that, that structure and be held accountable, there's no way I would be working in a detox, and listened and took and ran with the suggestions that my sponsor has done for me, so it's been a overall really blessed, positive life. Getting reconnected with my family has been, number one. Last year, I was It was a little different where the holidays came around and, it was a little too soon to be around the family, which I understood. And that's when my sponsor first kind of, not warned me about, but prepared me for. He's like, don't be alarmed if it's not going to go exactly as planned right away. Just be patient, keep doing what you're doing, stay plugged in and keep doing the next right thing. And they eventually will come around, and they have. So, yeah, this past Thanksgiving was amazing. I got to do a lot of amends, and and it was a little nervous, but overall it was a really, really great experience. So, yeah.
That's awesome to hear that you're doing well, man. And we're super happy that you still are active in the different groups and whatnot and still doing the deal.
Yeah.
I did have another question. Sober living, a big part of it is the structure as far as doing a daily chore, making your bed every day.
Yeah.
Has any of those habits stayed with you since moving out?
They have. I was really blessed to, I was able to gravitate towards certain individuals while I was still in rehab. So the Salvation Army is an extremely strict program. They taught us how to make our beds to the T. Wake up, say your prayers, meditate a little bit, make your bed, get ready, shave, all these things. So I carried that structured life that I learned in rehab over to sober living. And then I just ran with that there. And then once we got out, one of the guys I met at the Salvation Army, I kept in touch with him. He's actually got 2 years and 3 months, so he's a little ahead of me. But he's the best friend I've ever had, and we hold each other accountable. And that was one of the agreements when we first moved in with each other. We're like, look, we're going to continue this thing. We're going to continue to go to meetings. We're going to continue to talk to our sponsors. We're going to continue to work with others. So it's been great. He's been by far the best roommate I've ever had. So.
That's awesome to hear, man. It's always good to hear that when you take that next step, you're still, with somebody that's in the program doing the deal.
Definitely.
I did have one more question for you before we wrap up this morning. It's the holiday season. What's one thing you're grateful for?
One thing I'm grateful for is the opportunity to be of service. I really, really love teaching relapse prevention classes, especially where I work. It's ground zero. I get them in their intakes, and I kind of plant the seed a little bit of hey, do you have a sponsor and this sort of thing. And I see them the whole duration of their stay, anywhere from 5 to 7 days. And then if they're up for it, they go to a 30-day treatment with us, and then I get to see really how plugged in they can get with getting a sponsor. So I can kind of, guide them that way. And I'm really, really lucky and blessed to be a part of that because that's where it starts. So
that's awesome, man. And one more thing. For anybody watching that might be on the fence about going to sober living, maybe they're fresh off a relapse and they're having a hard time coming back. Would you have any words of encouragement or advice for them?
Yeah. So just because perhaps you may relapse, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over. I've known of plenty of guys that have relapsed, and the one thing in common, they say that they get embarrassed or their pride's a little, on the fences about it. But, just swallow your pride, stay humble, get back plugged in as soon as possible. Call your sponsor, get around like-minded individuals, and get back into sober living because being held accountable and also holding other people accountable it's what this whole thing is about. So yeah, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Well, thank you for taking some time out of your day to sit down with us. It's super cool to check in with you, man.
I appreciate it, man.
We are super happy that you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And for everyone watching, we will see you next week.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.